Alright, hi everybody. Today we're going to be talking about how to try to find the volume of a cylinder. So a cylinder is a shape that's like a can or a tube. It's got two circular bases and it's got a straight height. Before we talk about how to find the volume of a cylinder, I want to review how do you find the volume of a prism. The volume of a prism is calculated by doing the length times the width times the height. And that works when you have a rectangular prism. But you can have other prisms besides a rectangular prism if the prism isn't a rectangle or a square on the bottom. You could have something like a triangular prism. That's not the best drawing ever, but you could have a prism like that. In this case, it's not length times width times height. But in this case, it is. Why? Why is this length times width times height? Well, think about just length times width. If you just do length times width. If you just did length times width, what would you be finding? Wouldn't you be finding the area of this rectangle or square on the bottom of the prism? Yeah. So this is what we call the base of the prism. And so really, you could say that the volume of a prism is the area of the base times the height. And that might be how you learned how to find the area of a prism in the first place. So you might have learned this as length times width times height. You might have learned it as area of the base times the height. Now that we have reviewed that, I want to talk about how to find the volume of a cylinder. So let me ask you a question. Does a cylinder have height? Yeah, a cylinder has height, just like a prism has height. Does the cylinder have a base? Yeah, the cylinder has a base. This would be the base of the cylinder, right? And it would match with the circle that's on the top. Okay? So if we use area of the base times height to find the volume here, couldn't we find area of the base times the height to find volume here? And the answer is yes. That's how you find the volume of a cylinder. Now, the only tricky thing about this is, for this base, we have a circle. And to find the area of a circle, do you do length times width? No, you can't measure length and width of a circle. To find the area of a circle, what do you need? You need to know the radius of that circle. And once you know the radius of that circle, we have a formula for circle area, and the formula is pi r squared. Or you could think of it as pi times the radius times the radius. All right? So if that area of that circle is what we call the base of this cylinder, then what we can do is now develop a formula for the volume of a cylinder, and instead of the area of the base times the height, it's pi r squared times height. I don't know why my pi looked a little weird there. Pi times radius squared times height, or you could write it as pi times radius times radius times height. That's how you find the volume of a cylinder. I know, you've always been dying to know about that your whole life. So, the formula for the volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h, or pi times radius times height. That is going to enable us to solve some problems. So let's try to solve some cylinder problems. I will make a perfect picture of a cylinder. Nobody could draw a better cylinder than that. Let me tell you, that is a beautiful cylinder. I'm going to tell you that this cylinder has a radius of 3 feet. Ooh, big cylinder. And it has a height of 7 feet. What would the volume of this cylinder be? Well, we're going to remember what was the formula for this. It was the volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h, or the area of the base, which is this circle, times the height. So all we have to do is put the right number in for r and then put the right number in for h, and we will be able to find the volume of this cylinder. So pi is just pi. The radius is what? 3 feet. So I'm going to do 3 times 3 because it's r squared. And then what's the height? The height is 7. So this problem is actually quite easy. All you have to do is do 3 times 3 times 7 times pi, or pi times 3 times 3 times 7, or 3 times 3 times pi times 7. You can multiply it in whatever order you want to, right? You can all do it in whatever order you want to, but you're basically, for this problem, going to get 63 pi, or 63 times pi, because that's what 3 times 3 times 7 is. Okay, so we could say that the volume of this is 63 pi cubic feet, or we could use our calculator to find out exactly what that comes out to. So if I do 63 times pi, the approximate volume of this, and I say approximate because we're going to have to round, right, is about 197.9 cubic feet. And you can give your answer either way. Or read the directions to see if it wants you to give the exact amount with pi in it or the approximate amount with some kind of a decimal in there. Okay, the only other little bit that I'm going to warn you about on this is, if you notice, I use the pi button on my calculator to help me find the answer. Some of you know what pi is. Pi is about 3.14. So what if, on this problem, I had done 3.14 times 3 times 3 times 7? Would I have come out to exactly that? Let's find out. 3.14 times 3 times 3 times 7 is, this time it's 197.8. Uh-oh, there's a little bit of a difference there. Why is there a difference? Because does pi equal exactly 3.14? No, it's approximately 3.14. So this answer right here is even more of an approximation than this one, because this one used the real pi number, the full pi number, when I pushed the pi button, and this one used just 3.14, not the actual real value of pi. One way or another, you're going to be able to read the directions on a problem like this and give an answer in whichever form you need to give. If the question says use 3.14 for pi, give this answer. If it says give an answer with pi in it, you can give this answer. And if it says, estimate to the nearest tenth, you could give an answer like this. All right, just a couple more practice problems for you. Maybe just one more, because this isn't that difficult, is it? How about this? Let's do a cylinder going this way. Oh no, can we still do a cylinder volume even if it's going this way? Even if the cylinder fell over? Yeah, we can still do a volume for this. And we're still going to use the same formula. What's the formula? Pi r squared h. So what do I need to know about this cylinder? Well, let me give you some dimensions here. I'm going to say this is 10 meters. And I'm going to say this is 7 meters. Okay. So all I have to do is figure out what's the radius and what's the height. only two variables in this equation because we already know what pi is, right? So when I start to do my math, I already know what that is. But what is the radius of this cylinder? Is it 7? No. Notice the 7 is the diameter. So if I wanted to find out what just the radius was, what would the radius be? Well, it would have to be half of 7, wouldn't it? So don't put 7 here. Bad 7. We are going to put 3.5 here. But then don't forget, we're squaring it, right? So it's 3.5 times 3.5. Is that going to just bounce right back up to 7? No, because squaring is not the same as doubling. So we're going to do pi times radius squared times height. What was the height? The height was 10. And now I'm going to let my calculator help me out here. And so I'm going to do 3.5 times 3.5 times 10, which is 122.5 times pi. So I could say my volume is that many cubic meters. Uh-oh, hold on. Over here I said square feet, and that was supposed to be cubic feet, because volume is always cubic units, right? Cubic meters, 122.5 pi cubic meters, or if I wanted to give an approximation of that, I would do 122.5 times pi. It's always better, if you can, to use the pi button if it's there, because it's more accurate. 384, and how would I round that? I'd round that to 0.8 cubic meters. Either one of these would be a good answer. Just depends on what the directions say and how you're being asked to give your answer. So, volume of a cylinder is pretty easy to find. All you have to do is remember pi r squared h. Radius and height are your only two variables. Don't get fooled by sideways cylinders. The height is always the distance between the two circles, even if it's knocked over on its side. And don't get trapped by a diameter. Make sure you're using the radius whenever you're using this formula. All right, that's all I have to say about the volume of a cylinder. You're just going to be plugging a bunch of numbers into this formula and finding some volumes. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I will see you next time.